Welcome to Challenging the Norm, his and hers look at life and business, hosted by Paul Snell and Lindsey Burden. This podcast is designed for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and business owners redefining success on their terms. Each episode dives into the topics that truly matter, offering a blend of candid discussion, practical insights, all delivered with a sense of humour. We reality check the latest business trends while offering a fresh perspective that challenges conventional thinking. Paul partners with business leaders, leveraging cutting-edge neuroscience to demonstrate how people-centered strategies drive transformational success. While Lindsey brings her unique approach to business coaching, empowering ambitious business owners to achieve financial abundance and a lifestyle rich in time and joy, all without compromising what matters most. Together, we are challenging the norm. So grab a coffee or your beverage of choice and join us as we explore the art of creating a life and business you love. Well, hello, Paul, and welcome to another episode. I have to say that I'm a little bit excited about this episode, anxious about this episode, and absolutely have no idea where it's going to go. But before I pose a question for us to discuss, how are you feeling?
Do you know what? I'm feeling great. And do you know why I'm feeling great? Because it's sunny. I've concluded as I get older, I get more cranky and I get less patient with dark days and rainy days. And at the weekend, we went for a lovely weekend into the Cotswolds, only to find it rained and was freezing cold all weekend. And so I conclude now, as I look out the window, it's a beautiful sunny day. Can we have more of those, please?
More sunny days. I agree. Weather plays a massive part in how we feel. Well, it does for me because I don't like the cold at all.
Me neither.
Hence, I'm bundled up as usual, no matter whether the sun's out or not. Now, we have a big question today, and I want to get this right. So I have got my phone to hand because I want to get this question right. So the question that I am posing today is, research shows women are more likely to undertake training. And I think we should caveat that word training with learning as well, just bring in learning, not caveat it. So training, learning, developing, growth. But why is that?
It's a really good question. It's a really, really good question. And I think there's lots of answers. What come to mind for me, and it's a lot to do with the work I do, is this idea that there is a bias involved. And it's what they call the prove it again bias. There is plenty of research that strongly indicates that a minority, and in this case, we're going to use women, a minority have a tendency to feel they need to keep proving their ability to do a role or a job or a function, whatever it might be. Whereas, again, being very gender specific here, men have a tendency not to need to do that. They're often taken at their word. Are you good enough? Absolutely. Thank you very much. But women have, there's an inherent proven bias that goes along the lines of they feel that every time their ability is in question, that they have to prove it again and they have to prove it again. And that leads to this awareness that they just need more qualifications, more ways, more pieces of paper to prove they're just as good as men.
And I think there are two elements to this as well. I think one, women do feel that we have to prove ourselves again and again, and that we have to be better than men. And and we are generalizing, but that is particularly the case, I think, in the corporate world. And if you are employed, you have to work harder. You have to prove it again and again. So there is that part of it. But I also wonder, Paul, and I want to put this out there, I wonder if women are also more open to recognizing when and where there is a need for learning, for training. We are more open to it, perhaps, because maybe the bias plays into that. But also, I think we're pretty good women at going, hang on a minute. If I need to do X or I want to get better at, we seek help and support. I think we're better at asking or seeking that help and support. That said, women are also terrible at asking for it, seeking it, and then saying, "Oh, no, no, honestly, I'm fine. I don't need you to help me."
I think there's oh wow, where do we unpick that one? I think you're right? I do believe that. Um, I do believe that. I do think it's linked into this idea that women feel the need to prove themselves more than men do. I think the idea that women are more willing and more relaxed about more learning and more training does fall into that. Well, do they feel they have something to prove? And like it or not, that's been a thing for many hundreds of years, right? We're not talking about something that was a fad in the 1970s. We're talking about the fact that this has been around for a very, very long time. Or the idea that women played second fiddle to men has been around for a very, very long time. I think the world is very different. But here's the thing: the world being different and then behavior catching up can be a wide apart. And as much as I think there is more of a movement towards women not needing to prove themselves, or women treated the same way as men, I still think there's an inherent behavior that goes very deep. And we learn, I think we learn a lot of that from the generations, right? How we're taught to be grown ups, how we're taught to be a grown man and a grown woman by parents and family members plays a big role in that, right? Without giving too much away about my age, I can remember in the 70s, the expectation was really clear to me as a youngster. Mum stayed at home, looked after the kids. She received, we've mentioned this before, she received an amount of money to pay the bills and buy the food and do all the things that mums and women did while dad went out to work and earned the bigger income. And even then, I can remember my mother still had a part-time job, but the reality was that the dad was out there earning the money and mum was expected to look after the kids. And that was still very, very evident in the 70s, slightly less so in the 80s. So we're not, we might be talking 40 years now, but we're not talking a lifetime ago, right? Even now, our generation will have those memories. We haven't got to a point where there are no memories of that. Often when there are no memories of that, it gets easier to move away from, but we still have them, right? And our innate beliefs and our innate biases have developed all those over those years, from children, from being a child right up to an adult. So I do think there is a truth to what you say, but I can't help think that it is linked in to the core issue, which is the expectation society or men or women had about their role in it.
Yeah, and I know you and I spoke briefly today before we started recording, and we've both seen it in clients that we've worked with, this need to, well, X, it's not working. I was going to say X, Y, Z, but it's not working. I'm not moving forward. I'm not creating the income I want. So I need to do another course. I need to learn something else. And women particularly are good at that. And that's feeding into that lack of self-worth, self-belief, and all of those things. But also is linked to what you were saying, where we feel that we have to be better. So therefore we have to do more training, or we have to do more learning, or we have to have more qualifications under our belt, or we just need to do another course because then it'll be okay. And I wonder also, it feeds into what you were saying about that need to keep proving ourselves and having to prove ourselves again and again. And I think we both agree that that is the case. And we'd like to think that it's changed, but we know that it's still there. But when you are also a business owner, it can be used because you don't want to do the thing you have to do in business. So if we use sales, for example, I'm not getting the sales that I need. So actually, I just need to do another qualification. No, you just need to start picking up the phone. No, you just need to get more comfortable about having sales calls. You have to have more sales calls. And we use it to deflect away from the thing that we don't want to do. And I've absolutely worked with clients and they'll tell me that they're doing another course. And I say, but what about all those others on the shelf, which quite often we don't finish? And I think I've said it before, there is a statistic, whether it's still correct, I don't know, but it used to be that only 4% of people will finish an online course. 4%. That's a hell of a lot of online courses not being finished. And more importantly, we're not implementing what we learn. Because if we keep going, okay, I've got that piece, that didn't quite work, I now need to go. It's often because we're not implementing our learning. We're not taking into our businesses that which we have, invested in and learnt to do.
It's a very interesting point, isn't it? And I do wonder if it's a sort of a manifestation of that original core issue here, that again we sort of caveat this. This is our observations, right?
Yeah.
We don't have empirical data on it, but I do wonder at times if the idea of having to prove yourself time and time again is all linked into this. So if your business isn't going well, your thoughts are, well, if I just take another qualification, I'll be good enough.
Yeah.
If I take another qualification, it will be enough for me to be successful. I do wonder how much sits below the surface of going, maybe if I have that additional qualification, I will be worthy of this success, rather than I'm going to achieve the success. And I think the point I would make on this is qualifications. I wonder, this is something I'm going to ponder. Qualifications. I wonder how many, because you mentioned the 4% of people that really complete the thing. I wonder how many people go, if I just buy a qualification, it doesn't matter where I get it from. If this person says with 3 days of effort, I can become, you pick it, anything you like, NLP practitioner, it doesn't matter. Pick something, whether that is a driver. So I know I've seen this a lot in men, and I can't vouch for women, but I can see how men can wear qualifications as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And I wonder if women have a different view of that their qualification is more of a proof of practice. I can do this, therefore I've done the qualification, therefore I can do this. And men just go, well, I've just got another one. I'm now XYZ and I've got this certificate and these letters after my name.
Yeah, because that's really interesting, because I can put letters after my name, but I don't. And I wonder, I love the way that both of you and I sort of our eyes are going off as we're thinking about this. And in part, I know it's because we're being careful about what we're saying, because we don't want to upset anybody. But also, you and I sit at the same age bracket, and we've seen it and we've experienced it and we have lived it on both sides. And I think what you're talking about there, about a qualification being worn as a badge of honor, I think women get the qualification and don't tell anyone. So there are two things there. One, you don't tell anyone because actually you did it for yourself. It was about you proving to yourself that you could do it, that you could achieve it. It gives you the confidence. The other part is you're almost embarrassed to say that you've done it. Well, I've got it. Well, I can't tell anyone. We as women tend to, and we are generalizing, we don't want anyone else to feel bad. So we don't tell anyone that we've got this new qualification because we don't want to upset anyone. We don't want anyone else to feel bad. We don't want anyone else to feel, not worthy or any of those things. And women don't stand up and say, hey, I'm really good at this. Hey, I've got this qualification. So there's your credibility if you need it. But actually, I was good at this before. Yeah. We're not good at that. And I think that's the one thing men are good at, is standing in a room and saying, I do this stuff, I can do this stuff, come and work with me. Yeah. There is a confidence. Now, whether they can or can't, that is a whole different matter. And that's maybe even a different podcast, definitely a different episode. But they have this confidence. And I know I've said this before, but I just remember in the old days, when I used to do face-to-face networking and going in a room that was predominantly male
Mm,
and being given a business card by somebody who half the time didn't even tell me what they did,
mm,
but they expected me to work with them. They expected me to buy from them, and they had no qualms about giving me their business card. There were no doubts in their mind whatsoever.
mm.
And I want women to take that on board. And I used to use the example of my coaching. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but yeah, I went to the dentist one day and I needed some work. And my dentist went, it's this, da, 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 da. That's how much it is. Total confidence. Of course, there's total confidence. His pricing's on the outside of the building. It's on reception. He knows what his pricing is, so he can. And I can't remember what his name was, but I used to, let's call him Nathan. I used to say, be more like Nathan. State your pricing with confidence. But that's where I think men are, that's another reason I think that you don't need to have another qualification. You don't go chasing another qualification because you already have this confidence about you, where I think women often lack that confidence because of some of the reasons that we've talked about. It wasn't that long ago that, and we've said this before, women had to ask their husbands for permission to have an operation and they weren't allowed a checkbook. We're not that far from there. So we still have got a long way to go. As I say, as long as we've all got a memory of that, we're still going to be connected to that. But I think there's this I really want women to stand up and go, be confident. Yes, by all means, if you want to do another course or you want to have another qualification, if it serves you, if it serves your clients, by all means. But then shout from the rooftops and tell everyone that you've done it.
I think that's a very good point, but I actually think that's also the reason. I do believe that if the mindset is another qualification will mean greater success in business, there is going to be a problem at some point
Yeah.
because greater qualifications do not make for a greater business
No.
ever, actually, because even if you're super qualified, your client's going to want to know that you're capable. It's that classic scenario that goes, just because you've got a degree in something doesn't make you an expert, right? I can remember a very good friend of mine many years ago. He got a degree in modern history and ended up being one of the most successful ad agency MDs ever. And you go, so where's the link? Where's the link? What made that ad agency that first took you on go, oh, he's got a degree in modern history. He'll be ideal to be.
That'll be useful.
That's perfect for working in the world of media. Nobody. So I think there's a really good perspective that says as much as I can hear people now, I can hear people saying, yeah, but Paul, I do need a qualification in this, and I must have a qualification in that. And if I'm a coach, I must be ICF accredited, blah, 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 all of that. I understand the role it has to play. I understand the role qualification has to play.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sit and with a GP and expect them to do some complex medical assessment of me if I wasn't aware that they'd been to medical school and spent 7 years doing all of that stuff. There's a degree of satisfaction that they have. I'm not talking to someone who's a mechanic telling me, by the way, Paul, this is the workings of your insides.
Although they might be able to do that. It's quite similar, maybe. I don't know.
I'm not even going to comment on that at this point. So I think there is a role to play for qualifications, of course, and I think that's non-gender specific, right? Men and women need that. I do think it kicks in, as you've described, when what sits behind it comes to play. For men, what sits behind a qualification, for example, or some training, is the confidence to validate it, and they only need to it once.
Yeah.
Right? I am what I am, and these are my qualifications. Great, that's it. I don't need to say anything else. Whereas I think it's a different challenge for women. And I think it does come down to that idea that you've got to continually prove yourself. Or that's how it feels. I would love to know if anyone's listening, if and particularly women, if that's what you experience. It appears to indicate that there is a need to continually prove yourself. I don't know that for sure, but I think those kind of thoughts, those kind of perspectives are holding women back.
I'd be interested as well. I really hope that we've got some young listeners because I'd really like to know how even a business owner in their 30s, a female business owner, entrepreneur in your 30s, I'd like to know if you feel the same as we are, because I think we're on the same page with
Yeah.
this, and whether it's starting to change. And it was interesting you were talking about your mum and saying, getting housekeeping, because my mum also got housekeeping. We've talked about that before. But actually, my mum was a nurse. So she was a sister on wards in the old days when you had sisters. And then when I was at school, she was working in theatres and she was a theatre nurse. Her mum ran a very large institutional hospital in Southampton the whole time that she was a child. So I come from a family of women who worked,
Mm.
who had, pretty interesting jobs. They were jobs for both my mum and my nan. And in fact, my dad's mum, I mean, she had a cafe. So these are women that just went off and did their own thing.
Yeah.
But from a nursing perspective, absolutely, they had to have qualifications. Kind of for that reason, you wouldn't go to a GP and hope that he could do an MOT on the side. We want to know that he's qualified. But so that brings me back, I think, to a really important something that was running through my mind. So there are certain jobs
Mm.
that we need people to have a qualification in. A lawyer, another great example. I was going to say an accountant, but I think you could probably teach yourself accountancy and be pretty good at it without a qualification. But I'm sure there's lots of accountants going, no, don't be so ridiculous, Lindsey. And I do work with some, so, we'll wait to see what they say. But I think there are certain jobs, a vet, a dentist, we
Yeah.
need to know that they are qualified.
Mm.
And yeah, lawyers, accountants, I'm being flippant about accountants, but all need to be qualified. I mean, accountants qualified from a different perspective because there is a lot of legal things.
Mm.
But I don't know, for the rest of us, do we need to be qualified? Yeah, I think at the beginning of your journey, if you're looking at a young person, but that all it does is
Mm.
the degree tells us that they can learn. It tells us that they have an aptitude for learning. It doesn't tell us anything else.
No.
And then by the time you get to it, I mean, if you and I had to get a job tomorrow, I mean, my CV, they'd take one look at it and say, not a chance in, we're going through that whole GCSE thing here at home at the
Mm.
moment. And I keep saying, it's not everything. I
Mm.
failed maths O level twice. I got ungraded. I didn't even know my name on that day. I mean, for crying out loud, that is a sad state of affairs. But I did take it again. And I think I got an E the second time round. So that wasn't much better, but I did get my name and the date right. I think there's this feeling around, and now I'm thinking we need to talk about the education system because that is feeding that you have to have a qualification. It's feeding our children that knowledge and understanding and experience that they have to have a qualification to do well in the world.
Yep. And I'm going to be a little bit controversial and say largely in the wrong subjects. I agree, and you're touching on education. That's probably a whole podcast episode in its own right. But I do. You raise a really good point here, and we're
Like
sort
to
of going
raise
a
one a
little
day,
bit.
Paul. Just
Oh,
one
you
good
got
point
there.
a day is all I'm aiming for.
You got there. It does raise this other question, and which I see a lot of, and that is, and I can't see a gender bias in this at this point. I don't have anything that tells me this is a gender bias, but you're right. This apparent need to have a qualification means you're good enough to do something, and in some cases that is the fact, right?
Yeah.
But to have a bunch of qualifications means I could be an entrepreneur. When actually I don't need any qualifications to be an entrepreneur. Zero. I could start from nothing with nothing. So we have to be careful here. And I do think this arcs back with the basis that to go and start a successful business, and you can pick as many examples as you like. There are many famous examples of people going, I had no qualifications. Here's the interesting part. I had the drive and character to do it. And you made the point that a degree perhaps shows you that they have the commitment to learn and the discipline and the communication ability, right?
Yep.
Written or spoken. But it has nothing more. It has nothing more than that to offer. So we do get down to this point of going, character plays a big role, because it's not qualification based. Character is not about qualification. And so I do wonder, when we look at the need for training, there are stark differences when it comes to this idea of what training delivers, what qualifications deliver. And I want to really make this point really heavily, that a qualification is neither limiting to you or in some cases beneficial. I'm being a little bit controversial with that,
I
because
don't think you are at all. I think
there
you're
are
stating a fact myself.
there are qualifications that are very, very relevant and very, very good. But they are, what I'm saying is, a lack of qualification doesn't mean you lack opportunity. You have the opportunity. And I wonder if that arcs back to this idea that we have this inherent belief, maybe women more than men, that and society has driven this, maybe, that we see a qualification as a right. If you've got a qualification, you have a right to success. If you don't have a qualification, you've not really earned the right to be successful.
And not to stay on the track of education, because, we are not teachers, but we have children. I have two at secondary school. I think yours is coming.
Oh
Yours is less.
yes,
Yeah,
just
but
about.
you've been there.
Oh yes.
What I'm sort of finding quite interesting is that assemblies that are being held that say, if you have this many qualifications, this is available to you. If you have
Mm,
this many qualifications, this is available to you. If you have this, that's available to you.
yeah.
And if you have that, that's available. They are feeding that fear that without qualifications, you cannot succeed in life. I sit here as a business owner with ungraded in maths O level. For those of you that don't know what an O level is, feel free to Google it, or an E, because I took it again. And so I am not convinced. And you said something a minute ago, I want to come back to, that you do not need a qualification to be an entrepreneur. And I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. You do not need it to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. Okay, pick the word that suits you. Neither. What you need is drive. What
Absolutely.
you need is the ability and the mindset to have a go, fall over, get back up and try it again. What you need is the ability to seek help and
Mm,
support,
mm.
to bring around you those people who are the experts in those areas that you are not.
Yes, 100%. And just to add on that, I think it's really important that we say that with all of that you've just described, I think is fundamental, particularly if you want to start a business. And the warning, the advice is, don't see qualifications as a fundamental need. See them as a potential value add. So, what example can I use? So if you are a coach, if that's your thing, if you're a coach, and you see the benefit and value of becoming ICF accredited, for example, or you see the benefit of value of learning a particular coaching technique that interests you and you believe will be of value to your clients, great. But if you find yourself ever sitting there going, it's not really working out the way I wanted it to, I'll just take another qualification because then it will. That's a red flag.
Yeah, and if I, I just wanted to not explore, but I just wanted to expand on that a little bit because you're absolutely right. If a qualification or learning something is going to serve you better, support your business, more importantly, support your clients, then absolutely. DNA is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
You really should have mentioned that and used it as an example. Please follow the link to his website. Um, but if you're struggling in the business and you think that doing another qualification or learning something is going to make a difference to your business, then it isn't. If you notice that the person down the road, which I always say, because there is a business owner that works down the road from her house, so I use her as an example. If she down the road is doing X, you do not have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow the competition. So if you can always come back to purpose, to why, and being the best that you can possibly be for your clients and to enable your business to grow, I don't think you can really go wrong. Except if you think NLP at $7 is a great idea, you're sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to go down that route of finding these other tools to develop your skills, just make sure that you're going to reputable, I can't even say that. People that are really good at what they do. I've given up on saying hard words. I'm too old. If I can't say it the first time, I'm not going to be able to. So that's my only caveat to that. Don't go down the cheap route
No.
because you won't get what you need. So if you're going to invest money and your time, make sure you do that wisely. And as long as you always come back to how does this benefit me, my business, or my clients, I don't think you can go wrong.
You can't. And the flip of that is clients have a tendency not to buy you or spend money with you because of the qualifications you have. They do it because of the outcome you bring. And I think that's really important because my goodness, I've seen websites where someone has put more letters and certifications than I've ever seen on a single page, and think that's going to make the difference as to whether someone buys your services or not. And it really won't. I know, look, I've been there, right? I've spent, I don't know how many thousands of pounds on qualifications in my time. And half of them probably never needed. So I have been there. I know what this is like. But I can also say that at no point in my entire coaching career has anybody turned around and said, "Can you show me a certificate for what you're doing?"
Yeah.
No one. Because largely the point you make, if it adds value to the thing you do, it will manifest in the actions you take.
Yeah.
So working with a client, great. If you're going to use NLP, fantastic. And the client will benefit from that. But if you think having an NLP qualification for $7, as you quite rightly put it, will look good on the web page and that will drive business to you, it won't.
No.
Hand on heart, it really will not. It will come down to the value that qualification brings.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I was talking about I have letters under my name, after my name, and I have them because I did an MVQ many years ago in the charity sector, an MVQ in strategic management. And sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should. Do I need another qualification? I'm like, but Lindsey, you're still using the very thing that got you that qualification.
Yeah.
You're still using the same techniques. Yes, they've developed over the time. They've got easier, simpler, and all that. But actually, it all goes back to what I learned during that time, and I learned it while I was managing the charity. It's that simple. Because that's the best way that I learn. Because I think if you said to me now, Lindsey, you've got to take a qualification, I think I'd be that 12-year-old. Well, I wouldn't have been that, would I? 15-year-old sat in a hall taking that Maths O level and finishing it in 20 minutes. And yes, I really did finish in 20 minutes and had to sit there for another 2 hours, 10 minutes looking at a paper I couldn't do. So that's who I would become.
Yeah.
But if you choose something that you can really see benefits you, your business and clients, you will find that motivation. You will find that energy and resource that you need to do that thing.
I can't agree more. And if we loop right back to the start of this conversation, as I look at the minutes and think, goodness me, we've been talking that long already. I just feel there are some inherent societal, traditional, I don't know what word you want to use, beliefs out there that need to be removed. And they need to be dealt with, and once and for all. I don't think it's as easy as, you know, sorry, women, in inverted commas, you don't need to prove yourself. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think there's a deeper issue there. Not a deeper issue that needs therapy or anything like that, but just there is a societal issue there that we all need to be mindful of. And that is this idea of needing to prove yourself is prehistoric. I mean, we've got to get away from that. And I have to say, it's the same for men. This idea that men just have to go by their word that they're good enough is also prehistoric. You know, we need to get to a place where we're seen for the quality and the value we bring to any given situation in business, in work, in life, whatever it might be. We need to stop these biases that seem to be well entrenched. And it isn't as simple as, again, forgive me, it's not as simple as having some sort of social media campaign for women to stop trying to prove themselves. That isn't the issue here. It is a societal thing, right? We've all got to behave and think differently. It's not a responsibility of someone who can shout the loudest or be most prevalent on social media. It's not. It's all about who we are and how we want to be. So my question is, what do you want? What do you want to be? Men and women, what do you want to be? And this idea that women have got to prove themselves time and time again, come on. And men, you don't need to sit there and go, well, I've told you I'm okay, I'm good at this, therefore it's okay forever. That's not how it works either. Come on.
You've raised something really interesting, and I love how today, because let's face it, we had no idea where this was going to go. We've touched on a lot of subjects, including education. Who knew that would come up? Well, I think we probably did if we'd given it some thought. But what we're saying is there are nuances, to use your word, to all of this. There are society issues, challenges, and environments that are still playing a part and a role.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what you've just said there is that we all need to take responsibility and play our role in bringing the change to be.
Correct.
And for those, if anyone's listening and going, oh, well, but I couldn't and I can't, and particularly if you're a woman, fear not, there will be enough of us standing up for you.
Yeah.
And, and there are enough incredible men. And I think that is one of the things that I am so grateful for, and the change that I've seen, meeting so many incredible men who are out there championing women and saying, you can do this, you are doing this, you are incredible, and helping us to level the playing field. And that's God, this would be a great podcast episode for International Women's Day. We should have held back on that. Foolish people.
Don't tell anyone, Lindsay. We'll republish it on that
day. Yeah, we just put the same one out. But for me, I am heartened by the change, and I am heartened that it'll happen.
Yeah.
I don't think we will see it in my lifetime, but it's happening, and it's incredible to be a part of that journey and to see how together both men and women are making this journey easier for everyone.
What a way to end this podcast. How good was that? Done? I think we're done. In fact, well, we could talk for hours, you know that, but I think we're done for the podcast. But what a lovely way to end. It is important. We talk about many, many subjects, but when it's a passionate thing, when it's something that affects everybody in all walks of life, I think it's important we share our views. And for some, they won't agree. That's okay. That's perfectly okay. But what you and I have done today is what we said we'd do, which is his and hers view, his and hers perspective. We've given it. I think it's a good one, personally, as I'm sure you do. And we believe in it strongly. We come across enough business owners in what we do. We want to encourage that. I can't encourage young people enough to be entrepreneurial. I don't think there's enough out there. I think there's so much more scope. I think it's exciting. I think these times are great times. I've got such hope for the future. So without me waffling on endlessly about the hope I've got for the future, which is a lot, I'm going to say, Lindsay, another episode done.
Fabulous episode. Thank you, Paul. See you next time.
See you next time, Lindsay.